Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And today we are talking about finding microplastics in our ancient remains.
Yep.
Is it a
Never
clickbait
gonna
title?
end.
Find out
Yeah.
in a
Yes.
moment.
Yes, it is. So, for the first time, according to some new studies here, microplastics have been found in historic soil samples.
Um,
Um, what this effectively means is that researchers have found microplastic in undisturbed soil from a time which predates the concept and existence of plastic as a building material.
Okay, I'm gonna ask
And
a really dumb question here, and I really hope this isn't the case. But I wonder what kind of material they were bagging the soil samples into. Because traditionally, in my experience, we just use like gallon freezer bags at times.
that is
yeah.
true. That could be responsible for a single type of microplastic. However, the site was found to be contaminated with 16 different sources.
Oh, mama.
So it'd be one thing to say, "Oh no, our plastic bucket or our soil bag got into the sample." But that would, but even if both those were the case, that wouldn't leave 16 unique identifiers.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I don't quite understand. Well, part of what they also say too is that they have um, found microplastics that were in deposits 7 meters down, 20 feet deep underground, which were deposited in the first or second century, and that they were excavated in the 1980s, but now have 16 different kinds of microplastics in that. So were they
Yes.
there in the 80s, and that's what they're referencing?
So I believe what happened is the soil was excavated in the 1980s and was kept by the University of York in the UK. And now that we have much finer soil analysis, what they're finding is that there were microplastics, that there were and are microplastics uh, at a distance of 7 meters deep in the soil. And that is just how far and how prolific these microplastics are in contaminating the world in which we live, which is itself somewhat alarming.
Well, one of
Yes.
the big reasons it becomes alarming and that people are worrying, specifically archaeologists, is one of their favorite techniques to preserving a site or to preserving stuff is to leave it in situ, to leave it where it is, to undisturb it so future generations could come back and study it with new technologies and new abilities. But if every single site is going to be contaminated by microplastics, it could devalue the scientific aspect of the field.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is the big concern for archaeology and for us as archaeologists is if we can't reliably trust that in situ means preserved in place, then what do we do with the sites? What do we do uh, with what we're digging up? Because we can't store all the things we dig up now.
If you don't believe us, look up the curation crisis. It's a genuine
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. The curation crisis is real. So if we now have to dig up everything we encounter, what are we going to do? Because the big benefit of in situ was we leave it for a future study. We leave it for someone else who maybe has room or has something different they want to try or a new technique that would be more valuable than what we have now. If we can no longer trust that the future is going to yield that, then what do we do? There's no good answer. It's a crisis. uh and for those of you who are wondering and want to do your measurements in American, a microplastic qualifies as any bit of plastic that is no larger than one sesame seed. That's right.
Interesting.
I'm still refusing to use the metric system. This is my job.
Adapt at the times, old man. One
Yeah.
of the other things that poses a unique risk with the microplastics is not just the implications with them being found in these sites, but also with them being a combination or different polymers there's different chemicals associated with them that can be introduced to the site and introduced to the artifacts that are located within proximity to them. They could cause significant early decay. They can cause transformation. There could be a chemical reaction caused because of these materials. And it really puts a risk on future studies and future research because we don't know how far this rabbit hole goes quite yet. We don't know how significant the proliferation of microplastics in our soil really is quite yet.
and and one of the things too that makes this very much a silent menace to all sites, in addition to our not knowing, is it's not particularly visible. Most forms of disturbances, like animal dens, burrows, and looting, leave very distinct, easily identified traces for archaeologists to look at and take note of and say, okay, this soil is going to be mixed and contaminated. Microplastics don't do that. You only really get to notice them when you take the soil and do a microanalysis. If you're doing water tests with the soil, or if you're looking for pollen
Tests.
and seed residue,
Yeah.
it's a very specific set of tests that not all sites get because not all archaeologists are looking for them. And it's only when you do that that you realize everything you just dug through is contaminated.
Yeah. It's not the best. And David Jennings, the chief executive of York Archaeology, also gave a great example, a comparison between how a site can survive in an environment that's conducive to it, which he gives the Viking finds at Coppergate in the city of York, which were in a consistent anaerobic, waterlogged environment for over 1,000 years, which in such preserved organic materials incredibly well. Whereas previously mentioned, the microplastics will potentially change the composition in the soils, introducing other chemicals, changing the acidity, and overall not having the most positive effect in overall. But the just the fact that microplastics have permeated to such a high degree in every aspect of our lives is truly insane, and the fact that our plastic usage is still up there, you know, I don't know about you guys,
You
but
just can't get rid of it. There's nowhere in this
Yeah,
world that hasn't been
yeah.
touched by
And
it.
and to put in concept into context how prolific this is, the article itself mentions that it was only 40 years ago at the reporting of this article and the recording of this video that we got rid of putting plastic in makeup.
oh, microplastics, they had microplastic beads and a lot of makeups that were used to help exfoliate.
Yeah.
So we only banned that 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, on that depressing note, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.